Good morning. Thank you for joining me on Going to Ground. My name's Andrew Rumsey, and on Sundays I sometimes read out my weekly written piece that's on the WordPress blog site down in the Ephra, and I'm going to do that today. It's a bit of a digest, that piece, of the ideas that we've been looking at in these little videos during the week, and so some of the ideas and themes, phrases even, are familiar. They come from that. And if you've missed this week's films, then the weekly write-up is not a bad way of getting the omnibus. Now, the Ephra, by the way, in case you were wondering, the Ephra, my blog site is called Down in the Ephra, is a tributary of the River Thames, and it rises in one of my previous parishes. And as you might suspect, there's a song about that, and I might sing that for you next Saturday. I may be reducing the number of these videos when we get to 100. I think we're on 93 today, and they've continued throughout lockdown. And I want to carry on this way of connecting and communicating with you, but it may not be possible to do every morning henceforth, and we might go in seasons. But I'm going to get to 100 and then see how we see how we get on. But I'm really grateful for your continued interest, and I'm going to read to you this piece called Groans of the Britons. The Bath Road verge is, by June, virtually impassable. All the infant weeds that played about my ankles in April are now 5 feet high, jostling me as I push through. Tallest of all, giant hogweed can double that height, and is, I find, quite beautiful in tone and form, if also fearsomely harmful. Its sap can burn like ammonia, so it pays to be watchful when brushing past. A caustic mood is scorching the land. We are wounded, aggrieved, immediate in our need, and unsure of the ground before or ahead. On my mind for days has been a Bible passage from the Anglican lectionary, Deuteronomy 8 verse 2. Remember the long way that the Lord your God has led you these 40 years in the wilderness. I read that to you on Friday, I think it was, from a rainy bus shelter in Clatford. Remember the long way. I've been reading Anglo-Saxon history in the evenings as groundwork for the new book, safarying the dark forest of English beginnings, lit by occasional glades, a gildas here, a bead there, to guide the way. Unifying the nation then was an arduous business, obscure centuries of spadework before British, Germanic and Danish races integrated under the same monarch, faith and tongue. It would be no exaggeration to say that the main agent of this gradual movement was the Christian Church, which, in historian Peter Hunter Blair's words, had the capacity to act as a unit in a country where political unity did not yet exist. By a fairly unassailable blend of administrative nous, monastic incubation of learning and the creative arts, and a new unifying social ethic, the Gregorian vision that impelled Augustine to the Kent coast, that of a single English people under God, became a self-organising reality. Within a century, the Church had become the indispensable secretariat to the regional kingdoms, referee to each Game of Thrones. I'm reminded in the reading of that line in Scripture about once you were not a people, but now you are a people. And the English were not a people. They were all kinds of peoples, races and tongues. And in the light of the gospel, they became a people. And it was Pope Gregory's vision of them as a single people, as an English people, that within a couple of centuries began to bring them into that vision. Crucially too, it was Christians who told the long story, for they could write. This is really significant. Weaving biblical narrative into the national scene, the monk Gildasp describes the island of Britain as poised in the divine balance which supports the whole world, as if it were the axis of history. Writing in the 6th century, as the receding legions left the Isles floundering against invasion, he describes how a wretched remnant made a final unheeded appeal to the Roman consul for help, headed "the groans of the Britons." Whether or not Rome's eventual return to England as Christendom rather than empire was a prayer answered, it bound church and state in a knot we have yet to unravel. So if the nation still groans, the church must groan with it. But in what voice? Such power as the Anglican Church retains is a curiosity to most and an offence to some. Vestigial, and it may appear deeply anachronistic. Artistic patronage and civil service long since shed, the last part, and the best, arguably, of the Anglo-Saxon body politic that this church may yet recover is the power of speech, a ministry of the word. National memory is ever selective, as we are realising anew, always marshals the facts in order to tell a better story. Bede's ecclesiastical history was, famously, not a history of the church, but of the English people from the church's perspective. How to view the country's past is a tale that could usefully be told by an old institution, especially when we go to seed. Unlikely or archaic, these could be memories with a future. God bless you as you go to ground.